Yes, you're right. The wait is over. We're going to continue on this free audiobook series, and this is going to be the Mental Files. We're now going to jump into book 2, which is the Mental Files Dr. John Doe by Nurse Ann, which is me, an Indy author and a nurse of 30 years and still going on the front lines of emergency and mental health. I created this Indy author 6-part short story fiction series to let you see some of the action and the adventure and promote advocacy and awareness. So if you didn't get a chance to hear the first book, there is a link on my website, nurseann.com. On the podcast tab, you can listen to all the audiobook readings for free. And it's an audiobook / podcast where I read you each chapter of the books in order and then break it apart as it relates to our own relationship drama, inner thought struggles, battles, and you'll see everything that the frontline worker, the community, the church go through as they try to rescue those in crisis of mental, physical, and spiritual. So we will jump in. I'll give you a quick recap. Also on my website, nurseann.com, there's a link. You can get each book one by one if you want, but to make it easier and pretty much almost free on Kindle is the Mental Files First 6 Stories edition. I put the complete 6 stories in one so you can follow the action, the adventure, the romance, the faith, the inspiration, and the danger, seeing what these frontline workers are going through and the patients and the people that they do rescue and what they go through on the streets in their life, their lack of support, and how things turn out. So with that being said, we will jump into the Mental Files Book 2, Dr. John Doe. If you missed Book 1, it was the Mental Files Sheep Among Wolves. You met that young lady who was on the street fending for herself amongst all the ravenous wolves, trying to take her as their prey and see if the frontline workers were able to rescue her and get her to a safer place, even though that so-called boyfriend was trying to ruin her life. And then there was the young man caught up in the life of crime, find out what happened to him, and all the frontline workers, the church and the community that either tried to help or didn't try to help. And if this video on this social media site runs out, just go to nurseann.com, that's Ann with an E, and you can see the whole video on the link of the podcast, the YouTube site, Instagram site. It's going to be there for you. But that being said, I am going to jump in and start reading, and then we'll break it apart as it relates to real life. If it's about to run out, just go to the website, nurseann.com. So, The Mental Files, Book 2, Dr. John Doe, by Nurse Ann as the Indy author and the nurse on the front lines. Here we go. Here is the intro. Why was the gray-haired man with a confused look running in and out of traffic, screaming that he was a doctor? So you're going to get to follow Officer Leon, caseworker Lita, and their newest ride-along from the street to the healthcare system. And can they find out who the mystery man really is? And what about Mars, the young man who just narrowly escaped a life of crime? Will his negative thoughts pull him down further, or will he find inspiration to pursue new goals? Will Leon and Lita find a way to take their relationship to the next level? So, as in this series, there's mental health struggles, and in this book, memory problems and thought strongholds, and they are raging in this ongoing drama. What role does God play in the outcome? So let's check it out. We're going to join in Chapter 1, and once again, you're going to join these frontline workers for the suspense, drama, action, romance, danger, faith, and inspiration. These shifts are 24/7, so buckle up for this compelling ride. And The Mental Files, Book 2, Dr. John Doe. Chapter 1 is Runners and Ride-Alongs. So Mars, the young man that they helped escape from the life of crime, so he was excited that he had permission to ride along with Officer Leon and caseworker Lita for the mobile crisis pursuit. It was a welcome break from sitting around the house or setting up meetings with his new probation officer. He was hoping to start a new life path since he had just been rescued from that start of a career in crime. Most of his life, Mars had been easily influenced by stronger male figures since he never really had much access to his own father. So, when the creepy predator and crime boss Carlos recruited him a few months ago, Mars foolishly went along, not knowing the intense evil he was getting himself into. I'm about to get louder to outtalk that train for a minute. Thankfully, the officer, nurses, and nice caseworker helped pull him out of the downward spiral. Now he was hoping to make something out of his messed up life. And maybe his mom could stop worrying and finally be proud of him. When the trio arrived at the busy trafficked intersection, they saw a gray-haired and half-dressed man weaving in and out of cars. Oblivious to the danger he had put himself in, the strange man was screaming to the drivers as they passed by, "I'm a doctor! I'm a doctor!" Perplexed and curious by the strange sight, Mars took his earbuds out and turned his music off. This is definitely more interesting than my video games at home, he thought. "Is this the guy we're supposed to be picking up?" asked Leon. "He does fit the description that dispatch provided. Let's get out and see if we can maneuver him out of this traffic," answered Lita. The young protege was pumped to the next level when Leon put on the flashing lights and directed traffic to come to a standstill. Another shift of search and rescue, thought the single officer. Hey, well, at least I get to work with this beautiful lady again. Ever since they began dating when he met her on their first search and rescue mission, the handsome bachelor could not stop thinking about a possible future with this lady who was so different than his usual quick date girls. Leon knew he was a little rough around the edges, and he was worried he may have scared the caseworker due to his bouts of impatience with her and his drinking and sports bar routine. Maybe I could start to work on becoming a different kind of man, he daydreamed. Hopefully she's not completely jaded already about me. All right, focus on the mission, he thought as he brought his attention to the task at hand. Sorry, Mars, he told the young man in the back seat. You got to stay in the car, but you're welcome to observe and take notes. Notes! Complained the youngster as he longed to be right in the middle of the action. Sir, called out Lita as they inched closer to the man who had a disoriented look on his face. Startled by the duo coming after him, the older man started to run away while screaming, You know I'm a doctor. Call my office. They'll tell you the truth. Just then a scream popped out of Lita's mouth when she witnessed the man trip over the curb. Blood started to pour from a wound on his forehead. I'm calling an ambulance, advised the officer. Applying pressure to the man's wound with his first aid kit, Leon was relieved when he heard the oncoming sirens from EMS. That is the end of Chapter 1 of Book 2 of the Mental Files, Dr. John Doe. You can follow along on this series at the nurseand.com website on the podcast tab, and you can also get a link to the complete series if you want to follow along on this book club, this audiobook club. It's almost free, and it's filled with action, adventure, advocacy, and awareness. And then we're going to break it apart in this podcast/book club where we talk about our own thought struggles, relationship drama, and everything else that we as frontline workers, family members, community members, church members deal with and try to help, and also dealing with people that don't really want to help because they just want to keep their comfortable lives. And speaking of that, in my reading yesterday, I was in the book of Haggai. Correct me if I pronounced that wrong, but I remember that in the reading, God told them, consider your ways. And he was talking about that because the people were just chilling, working on making their own house better and better all the time, just their own comfortable lives. Well, not thinking about the house of God, not thinking about the purposes of God and the purposes for our life. And then I read a couple more sentences and he said it again, consider your ways. And that's so true in life. God wants us to consider our ways stop and think about the way our life is going. Are we living out our true purpose, chasing after purpose, that purpose-driven life, helping others, getting closer to God? And that is part of why I created this series. This ministry is actually here for those going through struggles, which is all of us, but especially for people that can feel like outcasts. They feel like they're in a box, or they're defined by a label, by a diagnosis, or by what others think about them and what they're now thinking about themselves and the struggles in their own hearts and minds. And so I have a lot of compassion as a nurse on the front lines of emergency and mental health, and still going for 30 years. I have a lot of compassion and advocacy. And so I want you to ride along on this series and get involved. You can leave your comments on ways that you've seen people helped and not helped, and also comments on ways that you think the system, the nation, just people in general, the church, the community can get involved to help those that are less fortunate, to help those with disabilities, to help those caught up in mental health battles and struggle, in the stigma, and especially trauma-informed care, where we look at what people have been through in their life, in their childhood, in their life, how it's affecting them now, and how we can look at people with empathy and compassion and see the whole picture, and not just look down upon them, and not just shy away because we want to stay comfortable. I know sometimes that's a tall order because we're busy. We have so much to do. The crowd wants to pull us along, and even sometimes make fun of us and mock us for trying to help people who sometimes people say are just trying to get over. I mean, I know that does happen, but you don't know what people have been through. People have been through trauma. There's so much going on in the world, the nation today. So let's get involved. And what are some struggles that you're going through and need some I can't even think of the word right now. Some clarity on. Well, God's got the answers. In this podcast, we look at some biblical prescriptions, some biblical answers to help navigate our life journey and deal with our own mental thought struggles and battles and everything we're going through, along with shining our light to help others. And when we do consider our ways, it always leads us back to a life to please the Lord, a life to get closer to Him, which always is for others, to bless others. So that was chapter 1 of the Mental Files, book 2, Dr. John Doe by Nurse Ann. That's me. I hope you'll support this Indy author. This is my first work, and also on the website you'll see the 2 devotionals, and we'll jump into the word puzzles devotional today, just give you a taste of that related to what we're talking about. This is A to Z, and S, one of the words is sentinel, and that means to guard, keep watch, protect, defend, and advocate, which is the heart of this ministry in these books. Are you an advocate? Do you need one for yourself? Unfortunately, there's no shortage of bullies, and they invade school, work, home, countries, and every arena you can think of. In Psalm 82:3 prompts us to defend the cause of the weak and the fatherless, to look out for the needs of the poor and the oppressed. And James 1:27 continues the plea to help orphans and widows in distress. The world contains billions of those in need. The task can seem overwhelming. Thankfully, we have a heavenly advocate. One step, one person at a time, we can be a part of the solution. So in this published short story fiction, you're going to meet the frontline workers, the church community, and hopefully you can be a part of that. And all of them get help from a God who is able. Yes, He is. So I pray that your advocacy on behalf of others will also return to you in your time of need. So please check out the series. Maybe you even want to just get the book also and follow along. It's a 6-part short story fiction series that I created after being on the front lines and seeing those in need. And then there's 2 devotionals. There's the Word Puzzles devotional, which is interesting words linked to biblical medicine for your soul. And then I also have another book. Let me find it. Sorry, I'm not in the picture. I'm trying to find it. Here it is. It's Energize Health, Body, Mind, and Spirit. And this is a Christian lifestyle devotional to jumpstart your total health for body, mind, and spirit. So I'll be back next time for chapter 2 of Dr. John Doe, and you can check that out on the podcast tab and get the book. And I hope that you're an advocate, and I hope that you get the help that you need also.